So what's the best way to design a logo? Stick around to find out, because I'm going to be sharing with you my process from start to finish. What's up designers, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Matt Roberts, brand identity designer and illustrator. I often get asked about my process behind creating logos, so today I'm going to be sharing with you just that. We're going to be using a fake company and I'll be showing you an hour-long logo design process. If this were a real project, I'd be spending a lot longer on this, but just want to guide you through the process that I use. Before we get started, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. We post new videos every Wednesday helping you become a better designer. Drop a comment below and let me know what you'd like to see from future videos. Right, let's get started. The first thing is to understand who you're going to be designing for and the background of the company. Normally this would happen through the initial discussions with the client, and you want to understand as much as you can about them, the products, the service, and what they're wanting to achieve through the new logo design. So for today's video, the company that we're going to be designing for is Modesk. Modesk are a startup software company that produce project management software that gives businesses full visibility and control over the tasks, enabling them to be more productive and maximize control of efficiency of a project. With being a startup, they don't have any existing branding, but they're looking for something modern that works well within the software industry, but also gives them a unique appearance to stand out on their own. The logo is going to be used in mobile and desktop apps, website and other marketing material, so the design must be suitable for those applications. So now we've got an understanding of who we're going to be designing for, let's get to work. Before I start designing, I like to list out some of the initial thoughts and ideas, and also do a little word association with the company and its products, just to get some crazy juices flowing. So, take a notepad and I'll just start writing out some ideas. I'll flick it open to a new page, start with their company name. So they're a software company that specialises in project management. I instantly start to think of blues, greens, but could be an opportunity to be a little bit more adventurous with colour, to give them a little bit more of an edge, something sleek and modern. So from there, it's time to get a little bit more focused, and the first step to really get started in this project and any creative project is research. We need to look at what's out there and find out what's working well, what isn't, what colours are being used, and what are the norms for this niche. For this, I'll be searching Google, I'll be using books that I've lying around, checking Pinterest. I've even got a folder on my computer with a bunch of photos in that I've taken over the years and I've seen out and about that I can use to draw inspiration from. While collecting reference images, I'll also be taking note of what shapes and trends I'm seeing. The idea is you want to know what's going on in the industry, but it's going to be your goal to broaden our horizons. If this were for a real client, I'd be putting together all of this research into a few stylescapes to go through with the client before moving on to the designs, as there could be a few different directions we could take the project. But for today, I'm just going to be collecting these into a folder that I can refer back to. Let's get started with the research. After I've got my research together, I take pencil to paper and start sketching. Normally I start by writing out the company name in uppercase, lowercase, cursive and a bunch of different ways, looking for natural relationships to form. Then I start to get wowed with my ideas, just see what I can come up with. It's good to explore options even if you don't think they'll work, as they may fit or they may lead to other ideas. While sketching, you need to ask yourself questions about what you're designing, like what happens if I were to make this M like that? What happens if I were to try this line there? The idea is you want to try and explore different options, so don't be afraid. But make sure you don't start stealing any of the ideas you've seen or liked. You simply want to be using them for inspiration. The idea at the moment is not to be perfect, be free and keep that pencil moving, just to start generating as many ideas as you can. There's a massive pressure to create perfect refined sketches with what you see on Instagram, but largely that's what these sketches are. They're refined final sketches and not the initial ideas, so don't be too hard on yourself and just get the ideas out there. I'm going to come up with a few more ideas and then move over to Illustrator to develop them further. Once I've generated some ideas and maybe refined a few sketches, it's time to move over to the computer. There's a couple of different ways you could get your sketches into Illustrator. You could scan them in, you could take pictures of them, you could email them yourself, you could even airdrop them to your computer. Or you could go crazy and freestyle and try and replicate the ideas. Now that I've got my sketches into Illustrator, it's time to start creating a few of them. So let's take a look at a couple of them and see what we've got. So I quite like the structure of this one, the way it flows in together to make the shape of the M here. I like this one here because of the structure of it. It could be representative of the planning part of the program. We've got these here that create quite an interesting connectivity feel. Some down here. So we've got like directional chevrons almost, but making up the M. I like the connectivity in the middle of this one here. So it's time to create a couple of these. So there's a couple of ways you could do it. You could either trace on top of these, for which if you're going to do that, I'd recommend come over to the layers panel, double click on the layer, and then I'd check template and then make sure it's dimming down to 50%. What that does, it just knocks them back a bit so you can actually work on top, but you'll notice it locks a layer off so you can't work on it. So I'm just going to add a new layer on top that I can work on. So just start by creating this one. I'm going to create a rectangle that I can just work inside of, just to try and keep things uniform. I'm going to draw another square out from this point here. Draw another square out. And I'm just going to use the pen tool to delete this to create my right angled triangle. So now we've got that in there, we can just size it up to suit. And then what I'm going to do for this next bit is I'm going to draw a couple of rectangles, and then what I'll do is I'll select both of the top points, and then I'll just use my directional keys to slide them over to try and match the angle of the triangle. So I'm going to move that over just so it's a bit more in line, and then again I'll just duplicate this by Alt, Shift and dragging it across. Delete the rectangle. So as you can see, this possibly needs to be a little thicker on these parts here to balance it out with that first one. So it should make them a bit thicker. And then I'm just going to move them in, and I'm just going to fling them round. So that's one that we've got created. I'm just going to drag this over onto this other page here. So there's a couple of different things that we could do now. I'm just going to check the alignment on this one just to move everything over slightly. But what we could do is we can carry on developing this. As I mentioned before, we're going to be wanting to work on duplications of these, save losing the original. So what I'm going to do is select all this. I'm just going to drag out holding Alt and then press Shift to keep it in line. But we could flip this. I'm going to create another duplication of this one. What we could do is we could round off this top left corner of each of the lines there, and just to add a bit more flow in it, and to even that out, we could let's create another copy of this, and then let's maybe round this edge here just to see it flowing back round. And maybe even if we were to do it to the far left corner as well, just to see how that would come in and how could it work in the design. There's no right or wrong, it's going to be a case of just experimenting to see what you can come up with and how you can develop some of the ideas that you've started off with. So let's look at creating one of the others. Let's look at creating this one here. So this one is a little bit different. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just create one of the initial angles in there, and I'm just going to hold Shift to constrain the proportions on it. I'm just going to make sure that I've got my over onto stroke. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the offset path function to create my two outer lines. So somewhere like that possibly. And then what I can do is I can delete the tops and bottoms here. And then delete this one here. And then I'm going to come back to these and then I'm just going to thicken them up slightly. And do is probably pull out these out a little bit further to try and balance things. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a copy of this and then I'm pasting in front using Command and F. I'm going to flip it and then I'm just going to draw these right over to here. And then I'm going to just align them up as best as I can. I might even switch over to outlines and zoom in just to get them as close as possible. Now they line up perfectly. So what I'm going to do as well is I'm going to join some of these, or I'm going to pull this one back here so it doesn't cross, and then I'm going to use the Command and J to join those two there. But what I am going to do is I am going to round this bottom corner off as well, just to try and create a nice flow between the letters. So again, let's duplicate this one and put it on our other artboard. And let's see what we can come up with. So again, I'm just going to pull this out. I'm going to, let's try just putting this bottom point here. Oh, those inside pointers. Let's try just pointing that back off and see what that looks like. We could take this a bit further and increase the length of the legs. So I'm just going to select all of these bottom anchor points and then I'm just going to drag them out slightly. We could maybe pull these in slightly so they kind of come back on themselves. So we're creating a bit more of an angle. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a white box just to position over the bottom, because when I'm creating these I could actually delete them off, but at the minute I'm trying to keep everything live so I can carry on working it and I can always come back to things. So I'm just working by eliminating areas. If this were a real client project, I'd be taking my time and spending a lot more time on each step of the way to ensure that the logo I'm designing is fit for purpose and solves a problem outlined in the initial brief. Let's create a few more of these ideas and see what we've got. When I'm creating ideas, I like to keep zooming out so I can check them at a small size to see how they'll work small. I like to flip to check the balance and reflect. Just allows me to see it differently than a letter form or anything like that. One of the main principles of logo designs is to keep things simple. If you're looking for some more tips on what makes a successful logo, I've got an article on my blog for 5 tips for successful logo design, which I'll drop a link to in the description if you want to have a read. So there we go, I've pieced together a few of those ideas now. Some things are working, some are not working so well, but this is the idea of trying to create as many as I can. And again, if this was a real project, I'd carry on creating the ideas, developing them further, and I'd fill the canvas as much as I can do before finalising the concepts that I was willing to show to the client. So once I've actually got these somewhere that I'm happy with, once you've managed to piece together a few of the designs and you've refined them to somewhere you're happy with, it's at this point you start prepping the designs to show the client. I show my logo designs in a keynote presentation that I can go through with the client and talk them through the journey and how it solves a problem. In client presentations, it's super important to use mock-ups and show the designs in context. It's important that you make them relevant to the client to make the most impact. If you want to see how I present my logo designs to client, you can check out my video on that. I'll drop a link to it in the description box below. So there we have it, that's the process I use to typically design my logos. Thanks for watching, designers. If you like this video, smash that subscribe button, give it a like, and also don't forget to ring that notification bell so you get notified every time we post a new video. For more awesome logo design content, check out the playlist link below. While you're down there, shop the merch for sweet hats like this.